we're going to sing on the most of you know, and if you don't, you'll learn it fast. This is Danny Name Sacred Love, and we'd love to have you sing along with us here.
Go for it.
Hello and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi. So first I'd like to welcome everyone for being here, as well as those who are joining us online. We are here at Unity Spiritual Center, where we're about transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference. My name is Pat, and I am going to be your platform assistant today. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones, and before you do so, go ahead and check in on your social media and invite everyone to join us online. So let's go ahead and share this experience, right? We'd like to begin our time together by sharing our opening affirmation. I'll say it once and I'll ask you to repeat it with me. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the good. And with me, there is only one power active in my life and in the universe, God the good. This is Unity's foundational principle: one presence, one power, one life, living through and as each one of us. This morning we're going to be hearing from Dr. Gary, and his talk today is the 4 stages of spiritual awakening. And Jane will be doing our meditation. I'm sure that's going to be lovely. This morning we are blessed musically by Sean, and I think, is that Brian over there? All right. Thanks for holding it down for Mom.
I was going to say, they didn't even have to change the slide. It was just the rights. They didn't put Brian on it. Are we ready to do this welcome song already?
Yeah, let's
okay, if you can stand, we'd love to have you stand. We're going to do Karen Drucker's arrangement of an old Native American tune called Thank You for This Day. We'll be changing up the words, so be listening.
Tweety, and I'm going to do there they are. To start with, Gary's going to do the first one.
Okay. So I just wanted to comment on this particular announcement. Next Sunday, Dr. Tim Sledge is going to be facilitating our annual board training, and our board training is open to everyone. Actually, we're probably the only church in the New Thought movement that does board training annually, invites everybody to come to it. It is a qualification for board service. If you're wanting to be a candidate, you need to have attended our board training, but it's important. The board wants you to attend their training because it's important for you to know what the effort is so that you can help hold the board accountable to doing the best it can do in its effort to to lead this organization. So if you have time and you can avail yourself, and if there's, for whatever reason, you can't, but that's something that's really, really important to you, talk to me about that. We'll see what we can arrange. So thank you so much. Carry on.
Treats. We want to thank, Sue Terry did 9 o'clock, and I forgot to thank her, so I thank you for her arrears. And the 11 o'clock treats are being brought by Rosie and Shalom. And anybody who wants to, there's a sign-up sheet out on the sign-up sheet table, and you can pick a Sunday, 9 and 11, or both, or one or the other, and bring treats. So, sign-up sheet now, no more funny things from Dennis, sorry. Then there's still an opening for Spirit Group with Jim and Sally Sledge. You have how many spots? A couple spots. So, and beginning 10/21 at 7 p.m. So if you're interested in getting into their Spirit Group, talk to Jim or Sally. And the last message I have here is David and Brian are going to be doing some training, sound and video tech training, between services on the 28th. So if any of you are interested in being a part of the team that takes care of video and sound and lights and all the good stuff around here, please talk to David or Brian. Thanks.
Community update. Community update slide. Sorry. Okay, now we will resume our live.
See, last time I got a much better introduction than that, Dr. Garrett. So anyway, my name is Carolyn Coleman, and I'm a member of the Welcome and Connection team here at Unity. And our purpose is to help each and every one of you feel at home here in Unity, at Unity, by helping you make connections here at Unity via volunteering or classes. Anyone with a yellow scarf can answer any questions for you. And with that in mind, I wanted to read you something that came in large part from Sharon McErlane's website and her group, The Net of Light. And it's about volunteering, excuse me, and connection with people. When you connect with others in light, when you reach out to offer help to someone else, your attention begins to pour from your heart to another living soul. Your energy is no longer confined to just a small circle within you, but it moves onward and upward in a never-widening circle. Service is an easy path to spiritual liberation. And this is true because instead of energy only rotating around your own small sense of identity, it moves to connect to a greater circuitry. Excuse me for all today. You expand when you serve. And when you are giving, you are automatically receiving love. And because love is your nature, each time you reach out to help others, you feel your own beauty. You feel the joy of who you really are. Do acts of service for others, but do it primarily for yourself, because it reminds you of who you really are. Should you find that it's hard for you to offer yourself in service, if you're somehow holding yourself back, be curious about what's discouraging you from doing that. What is stopping you from living in the flow of loving service? Our acts of service and kindness have far-reaching effects. We don't always see or know the results of our acts, what influence it has on others, but it is an act of faith to put our intention into action and then let God do the rest. The world today is starving for love in action. You are the one to move our world forward. We move our world forward, our energy, our hope for a better place and a better world by doing these acts of loving service. I'll see you at the welcome desk.
who you are is a blessing to the world. So let's take this moment right now to connect to that deeper source within us and to share that with the world. Each one of us is here to be the hands and the heart and the voice of spirit in expression, an outlet of the divine, connected at the deepest level. We know the truth that separation is an illusion, that there is no separation, that we are all part of the one life, here to be the one to make the difference in our world. And so we take this time to begin to follow our breath in and out. Not trying to control it, just observing this endless tide giving and receiving. As we do, I invite you to release all of the activity of the day so far. Anything that's been on your mind, any need, care, any worry, we'll just gently set it aside for now. We can always pick it up later. But for now, we let go of anything that is keeping us from being totally present as we sink our awareness deep, deep within, feeling our feet planted on the floor, feeling our back against the seat, feeling our hands sinking our awareness deep within, inhabiting the moment as we move our awareness through the trunk of our body to the neck and the head and the face, finding any places of tension on the body and releasing, knowing that all is well and that all will be well. As we plant ourselves in the present and continue breathing into the heart space. Just imagine that breath going right into the heart. And as we do, I invite you to activate a feeling of appreciation, gratitude. As you bring into your awareness someone or something that you deeply appreciate, and allow that feeling to grow, to expand, to spill out from your heart as it fills your body. Just feel every single cell coming alive, invigorated, on fire, with this healing vibration of appreciation. And letting it expand beyond the body as we create an energetic field of gratitude, coherence, compassion, empathy, kindness. It saturates this room and moves beyond the walls to bless our world. And so we continue to breathe into the heart, feel appreciation, let it expand. and send it forth as we say, may all beings be well and happy as we enter the silence. You are the heart of God. You are the hands of God. You are the voice of God. And you are a blessing to this world.
You are the voice of spirit, and who you are, and all you is a blessing to the world. You are the voice of spirit, and who you are, and all you is a blessing to the world.
So I want to begin with providing a little bit of a context. We talk about our purpose being transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in their world. And what that means basically is that our effort is to help you transform your life. And it's helpful to have a sense of what that effort entails. And so one way to think about it, this is Ken Wilber's approach, what he describes as integral spirituality. For us, it's a way of keeping before us a sense of where we have to apply our spiritual practice. We have to apply it in the context of waking up, awakening, activating that dimension of ourselves that is not of this world. And so we need to awaken that part of us that is spirit. We need to grow up. We need to develop those aspects of our gifts and our talents and our capacity to be unto our world the one. And we have to clean up. We have to deal with what happens when we inadvertently live in life patterns that aren't the truth of us. When we live out of a sense of not enough or inadequacy or unworthiness, we create. And what we create out of those limiting beliefs is karma. And so we have to clean that up. And then, of course, if we want to see a world that works for everybody, we have to show up and help to co-create that. So as we look at waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up, and also signing up, by the way, right, Carolyn and Frida? We want to make sure that we include the 5 elements of transformation at Unity Spiritual Center. Not want to leave those out. So no matter who is up here delivering the transformative message, it's going to have those elements. We're going to be some aspect of our practice is going to be about waking us up, kind of shaking us loose from our focus on what's happening in the world as if that's the truth of us. And to grow up, to know that we can evolve out of any sense of not enough or any sense of victimhood. And to be able to realize that we can own our life experience no matter what has happened, because it's all grist for the millstone of our becoming or our overcoming or our welcoming something greater into our life. And finally, we can get into this sense that we can make a difference in our world. We just have to show up. We have to come from the context of who and what we've come here to be, as opposed to try to fix something that appears to be broken in our life. So no matter what our approach is, there's going to be some aspect of our spiritual practice that affects one of these 4 or 5 things, signing up included. But in spite of that, we also have to have a sense of where the practice has to be applied. What is the precise effort that's involved? Because we just can't have a kind of wishful thinking. We can't carpet bomb the universe with platitudes of help me figure this stuff out. We have to kind of work with this mind-body mechanism, because that's sort of what is our interface in this world. And so I've shared this slide before, and I'm going to spend some more time with it and explain it in more detail, because it is such a useful tool, at least for me. And I want to share why I value being able to kind of map out a kind of schematic of the circuitry of our sense of self. So this is a representation, my way of objectifying what lives in me as an unconscious dynamic of all of these different things that are happening within whatever is this self that Gary is. And so there's a part of my self system, a part of the circuitry of my beingness, how I'm creating my personal reality that lives in the context of my habits of being, my habits of doing, my habits of having, my habits of feeling, my habits of believing, my habits of perceiving. And that informs the cycle over and over and over again. And if I don't understand that those are that's the circuits, those are placeholders for what could be described as a psycho-neurological, biochemical, developmental dimension of the physical side of ourself in this world. Of course, that's not all there is, but that dimension, that circuitry can eclipse the part of us that is not of this world. Our soul, our essence, the sense of who we are and what we've come here to accomplish, bless you, can be eclipsed by all of that. And so to be able to understand the circuitry that creates our personal reality gives us a way in which we can alter the quality of our life experience and actually take ownership of what we're having as our life experience and have some utility, have some sense of empowerment, as opposed to feel like we're a kind of a prison of our own making. We're in prison, well, that is the truth in part, but the point is we're not stuck with that. So I'm wanting us to sort of see that in this circuitry which is primarily not conscious. We can think about it and say, okay, I can sense there's this part of me that is habituated to being a certain way when certain things show up in my life. That's called a habit of being. And I can understand that there are certain things that trigger my automatic way of doing things. And so, for instance, if I'm judged, I can find myself going to defensiveness as what I do when someone is judging me. And so we can begin to see, oh yeah, there are habits. There are habits of who I become when certain things happen. There are habits of what I do when certain things unfold. And there are habits of how I'm having my life. And so we can begin to make conscious that which is unconscious. But suffice to say that the top half has us focused on how our life looks and feels. Can you see how that we're paying attention always? Some part of us is doing that. And the bottom half is kind of invisible to us. It's sort of what's unconscious and what yet supports the outer expression of all those habits of being, doing, and having. And so if we understand this circuitry, then we're better able to understand what we have to do to address how to improve our life or how to change or transform our life. We have to intervene on this level of this circuitry because it's unconscious. And when we make it conscious, then we can work with this. And I'm wanting to share how we can work with this as we look at the 4 stages of spiritual awakening. And so if we can take into consideration that there are actual logical steps that we can take working with ourself to unlayer what has been superimposed upon us that is a veil to who and what we've come here to be, we can do that work. And I'm going to share a video clip from Michael Beckwith, who is a spiritual leader and founder of Agape International Spiritual Center. And he shares this 4-step process that he calls the 4 stages of spiritual awakening. And I'm going to do a series on these 4 stages. And every time I talk, in the next 4 or 5 talks, I'm going to share the same video. So we get trained. We're going to train our attention awareness to think a certain way about our approach to how we're going to be in practice with whatever's showing up that looks or feels against us, so that we have a systematic way of understanding how we can be with whatever we're having and not feel diminished by it, that we can actually use it to help us evolve and unfold. So here we go.
Many years ago, I came up with a model of stages of spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment, that we could have a wonderful conversation about what that looks like. What came to me, through me at that time, was the 4 stages: to me, by me, through me, and as me. At first stage, something happening to me, I'm a victim. I live believing that something outside of me determines my destiny, my happiness, my success, my well-being. Stage 2, by me, is the stage in which we learn to manifest. We actually use our mind, our conversation, spiritual practices, and we begin to use spiritual principles to manifest the kind of life that we can imagine. It's the manifestor stage. Stage 3, through me. It means I've done such rich work in stage 2 that I have an inner subjective belief that life is for me, that the universe is progressive, that something wonderful is always trying to happen. And I learn to yield to it, to surrender to it, to give over to it. This is the stage in which you go into the zone at times. You have a peak experience. Something is operating through you. And then stage 4 is as me. The line of separation is dissolved, and I feel my oneness with all of life with no filter. Stage 1 is victim. Stage 2 is manifestor. Stage 3 is being a channel or a place. Stage 4, I'm it. No separation. So in the stage 1, the victim consciousness, we feel disenfranchised from the world, disenfranchised from opportunities, we disenfranchised from what we've inherited from the universal presence. We're separated, we're isolated, we're alone. In stage 2, we use what is often called mind power in the right use of our imagination, creative visualization, high, wonderful conversations, keeping our attention high to create a vibrational match of that which we would want to manifest. It's very masculine. I am using the laws. I am directing my attention. I'm making something happen. Stage 3 is more feminine. I'm yielding. I'm surrendering. I'm allowing. Because I've come to an awareness that the order that we all depend on, I don't make that order. That order already exists. I'm yielding to it. I'm surrendering to it. Stage 4, the sense of separation is dissolved, and I feel totally at one with life. Stage 2, I'm making something happen. Stage 3, I'm making something welcome. There's a shift. There's a shift. Research has shown that when you know why something works, it even works better. For instance, we know that vitamin C is good for us. But if you actually read something about vitamin C and see the efficacy of how it works on the body temple, then when you take vitamin C, the vitamin C is enhanced throughout your body temple in terms of your immune system, etc. These 4 stages, when you actually study the map, you actually read about it, you actually do the practice, it enhances and expedites your spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment, because now you know why as well as what.
So this is exactly what we're wanting to accomplish, is real clarity about the map, what we're really after in terms of our journey, so that we can be very clear that the first stage, we have to complete that before we can just sufficiently move into the next stage. And so what I'm wanting us to do over this series is to look at our awakening up process as being in this stage. So life happens to me. That's the first step, where we recognize that we have aspects of our life against us. And so whether we call ourselves a victim or not, it doesn't matter. If we have a story to tell, then we're in this mode of life is happening to me. And so whenever we have a dynamic where in relationship to a moment as if it's happening to us, then our power is out there, right? But so we want to evolve out of that stage. And then the next stage is life happens by me. And we've been talking about manifesting a greater good in our life, but guess what? We can't do that very effectively if we're still have pockets within ourselves that believe that someone or something is out there that's against us. And then after we master a sense of being able to work with principle, work with the creative process, understanding that our thoughts and our beliefs and how we're being with what we're having creates our personal reality. More about that next week with Dr. Jane. Until we understand the mechanism of what creates what's happening in our life, then we will still feel like we're subjugated to what's happening as opposed to co-creating our experience. And then we want to shift into a sense that life is happening through me. You know, being connected to this dimension of ourself that is here as an expression of soul, of spirit. And then finally, life happens as source. I am source unto my own life. I am it. And so we just can't cover all of this in this one talk, and so I'm going to break it up into bite-sized chunks. And so this week I'm beginning the conversation on life is happening to me, and so how can we evolve? How can we move and apply a spiritual practice towards moving out of this sense, of any sense that there's anything out there that can eclipse my capacity to welcome into my life a greater good. So with that said, with understanding the map of what our process is, if we go back to this map of the circuitry of our self-system, then what we need to recognize is we see that there's a part of our self-system that's focused on the outer. And there's a structure in our brain called the amygdala that has as its job to pay attention and to monitor over 400 billion bits of data that the brain can engage to figure out whether or not we're safe. And that part of our circuitry would rather be wrong 99% of the time than miss the one time that it failed to protect us. So guess what? We get triggered almost by any little thing, only because there's a part of us that wants us to be prepared. But you know what happens when you're triggered over any little thing? You say and do stuff that creates karma. And so that's not good, bless you. So we need to understand that we have to override this circuitry, even though we have this part of us that's ancient, that's instinctual, that has as its intention to keep us safe. It doesn't serve the greater purpose of our taking ownership of our own life and being able to determine how we're going to be with what we're having. So we can think of the upper part of this map of the circuitry of our self-system as being the mechanism of how we have our life. So there's a part of our circuitry that has our life unto us a certain way, as opposed to thinking that our life is a certain way and we're just subjected to it. I'm suggesting that what our brain, our self-system does, our self-system just has whatever it is having as being, this is how we're having our life. It can be totally off principle, but it doesn't matter. That's the mechanism of the circuitry. It determines how we're going to have our life, how we're going to take it in, whether or not the glass is half empty or half full. That circuitry is in charge with that. The lower part of this self-system, our habits of feeling and believing and perceiving, our meaning-making mechanism, the part of us that gathers evidence, is all about the why. In other words, this is all about why we are having our life the way it is unto us. So there's a part of us that has our life a certain way, and then there is the mechanism that rationalizes that. And so we're trying to understand what victimhood really is. Victimhood is really a sense of something or someone is against us, and we've created the evidence to make that the truth of us, the truth about what we're having, you see. This is something that the self-system does automatically, independent of our permission. And so our conditioning is what determines the nature of our predelineation towards how we're going to have our life. And if we don't understand that this circuitry has to be addressed, then our spiritual practice won't necessarily affect what has to be addressed if we're to move the needle with respect to our transformative experience. Are you tracking me so far?
Yes.
If I was to ask you to explain this to somebody, could you do it?
No, I couldn't.
But I want you to be able to explain this to somebody. I want you to be able to say, there's a part of me that has my life a certain way. I'm conditioned to have my life be against me in certain places, in certain situations. I have trained my entire being to make up a story that supports that intentionality to have my life against me under certain circumstances. And if we don't know what those circumstances are, and if we don't see the patterns, we will always make the matter with us something out there, as opposed to see the self-system that is not functioning in the integrity of our essence, but is rather an artifact of the sense of separation. And that is what is running us. That is what we must free ourselves from. Okay, here we go. Let's turn this way. So, if we're going to focus on the whole dynamic. Now, oh, isn't that so cute? Where did I get that little dog? Okay, so I got to tell you that there is no dog. We're the only mammals probably on the planet that can become a victim. I mean, just think about it for a moment. When was the last time your dog, remembered? So the point is that we have that capacity to have our life against us because we have a dimension of our self-system that reflects and makes meaning, and that is different than most other sentient beings in a sense. So if we can go to a place within us where we're a victim of our life, this is what we're talking about now, okay? And so all of us, from time to time, go to a place where that's our experience. We're having someone or something be against us. Okay, and so that's important to know. And it's for different people, it's different things. So for some, and I'm going to be talking about how I have created my own sense of victimization around money and around my career. And I'm going to tell that story and sort it all out through this whole series so that you can sort of see a very real life situation and the effort that Jane and I have been through to try to apply these practices, recognizing that when I'm concerned or stressed out about my career, I'm having something against me, and if I am using my situation as evidence as to why I'm not able to succeed, then I am using my situation to victimize me. You see how I am creating for myself my own kind of encapsulated no-win scenario? By virtue of creating the situation and the story to support it, to keep me locked into a belief about myself that keeps me tied to the sense that I'm not enough, or the sense that I'm not okay. Whatever is behind my sense of victimization, what's up for me is that until I resolve that, then it's very difficult for me to manifest a greater good or success in my life. Can you see how that could be so in my situation? Can you see how it could be so? If I'm living in the belief that there's something out there that's preventing me from experiencing a greater good in my life, can you see that that's, when I'm doing that, I am doing unto myself this sense of victim? Can you see how that's so? Okay, now, there are some situations where we can kind of make up a story that we didn't do it to ourselves. Let's try to find at least one example. I'll come up with one. Here it is. Here it is. Okay, so that's a legitimate victim, right? Jesus on the cross. I mean, we've legitimized that. But you see, if you were to ask Jesus, do you consider yourself a victim? He would say no. And he said so. He said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. He didn't buy into the belief that his experience was against him. He saw it as an effect of the disconnect. And so when we understand that the ills of our own life and the things that we struggle with are an effect of the disconnect, whose disconnect is this? It's mine. That's where I have to start this work. I have to address it there. Okay, so I'm just waiting. There we are. So if I'm going to be able to shift out of this dynamic of being victimized by what I have created as a world where I'm having to have things happen out there in order for certain things to take place, in order for me to feel okay about myself. And what we're saying is the problem is not out there, the problem is the circuitry. Right? That's what we're saying. The problem is the circuitry. It's not anything out there. So to the degree that I do not abandon my effort to try to address the reflection and instead and not pay attention to the circuitry, then I'm working not with the problem, I'm working with the effect. And so as I look at the circuitry, we want to see that if there's a part of my meaning making and part of my dynamic of self that is creating a story over why I am the way I am, then my self system keeps me encapsulated in that reality. Right? And so in order for us to change the outer experience, we have to do two things. We have to be capable of changing our habits of being, doing, and having. And we have to change the story. You see. We have to do those two things in order for there to be any shift in our self system that changes the way it creates its personal reality. In order for us to have a different personal reality, we have to change the inputs to that self system. So now the effort is, how do we give up our story? Because you see, that's going to be one of the benchmarks, the kind of tests to see if we're actually moving in the right direction. And so if you think about your story of not enough, or your story of life happening to you, or your story of victimization, if you can see how that story gets told over and over and over again, maybe you're not telling somebody directly over and over and over to somebody, but that story is running in your head over and over and over again. If you're not willing to give that up, then something else is needed instead. You have a question?
I'm reminded of, I believe the author's name is Ken Burns, and he wrote a book in the 70s called How to Love Your Life in Spite of It All. And one of the ideas that I found very profound was that when you have a, quote, demand that life be different, it's very different than having a preference for a life
Sure.
to go in a certain way.
Sure.
And that simply changing that demand or need to be something that you would prefer allows one, I think, to go on a much more positive
Sure.
way.
That's a good point. And it goes along with, what's your name? What is your name?
My name is Catherine.
Catherine. Catherine, it goes along with what we often say is that if we're to kind of presence that, like for instance, if I presence the fact that I make up stories no matter what, and if I just say, well, the story I'm making up about this is, that helps me make sure that I don't inadvertently validate something with this is the way it is by saying, well, this is how it is, as opposed to this is the story I'm making up about it. So I think that goes along right well with that. So as you think about giving up your story, so here's the challenge. You cannot give up a story of victimization until you're ready. Okay, so some experiences, especially trauma, you cannot just get over it just because you're tired of it. And so some things require of you a process that is more than just getting over it, but is about integration. It's about really kind of being in all aspects of what this story is so that you see the fullness of it so it can be totally owned. I'm talking about the repetition of our just over and over and over again holding ourselves to the same experience. We're trapped in that same feedback loop. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And so how do we break out of that? How do we break out of the habit of sourcing our discomfort out there and therefore rationalizing how we be within ourselves in some way of contorting to be able to manage it? So I'm wrapping this thing up because this is a series and I'm wanting to do it justice. And I'm not wanting to rush through it with sharing a personal example or a personal experience and then just having it kind of gloss through. So I'm wanting to take the time it takes to understand that if we were, for instance, to change this circuitry, what might that look like? So for instance, if I'm talking about a victimization that I'm carrying with me, where I see myself struggling to get some evidence of my worth by having something happen in my career, in my world that gives me more money or whatever it is, the symbol of giving me something that I need in order for me to feel like I'm worthy. In my effort to try to not have to go there out there, but rather to work that from the inside out rather than from the outside in, I want to share how I work with the circuitry. So the first step is that I have to map out the habits I'm wanting to correct. So what is the habit of being that underlies my sense of victimhood, my sense that my life out there is not happening the way it needs to happen for me to be okay? Well, my habit of inadequacy is one aspect of this, because that conditions the habit of my unconscious spending. And that conditions the habit of my having to have what I want to have now in this moment because that's when I want it. And can you see how those three habits in the presence of a credit card can translate into thousands of dollars of indebtedness that could make one want to have their life need to work differently in order to manage this stuff that I don't want anybody, even myself, to notice? All right, so stay tuned for the next part of this story. That's all about the struggle now to really work this system with different behaviors and a different story, because that's what is next. We have to change the upper behaviors and change the lower story that we tell. Talk to you later. God bless you.
Thank you very much for that, Gary. The story I'm telling myself as a seeker and wayfinder is we're far more inclined to find the new territories within ourselves that we have maps to go and discover. So all of the new maps that we do have and that we can receive, it's good to take a look at those and maybe go for a wander around inside of ourselves. So thank you very much for that, Gary. And I'd like to welcome you all again. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury. Unity honors the many names for God, the many paths to God, for we know that there is only one power, one presence, one life. So whoever you are, and wherever you are on your journey of transformation, you are welcome right here. We'd especially like to welcome anyone who is here for the first time. If this is your first time visiting with us and you are comfortable raising your hand, please do so. Our ushers have a gift packet just for you. On the outside of the packet, there is a form you can fill out to be added to our mailing list for our weekly e-news updates and quarterly newsletters. This is a great way to keep up to speed on what's happening in this great place. If you are interested, please fill it out and drop it into the love offering bag as it comes around, and you can do that instead of making a donation today. Also, after the service, you can take this packet to the barista stand to get a free beverage. You can't beat that. So you can also take to the bookstore, get a CD of today's talk. If you have any questions, you can ask any of the members of the welcoming team. If you're wondering who they are, look for somebody in a yellow scarf. And if you don't have a name tag on and you choose to do so, you go ahead and look in the seat back pocket in front of you, fill one out, and go ahead and put it on. And we'd also like to welcome our online viewers. Thank you for tuning in today. And now it is time to greet each other with a handshake, a hug, a high five, a fist bump, a namaste, or whatever works for you. And so I'd like to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. If you can stand, that'd be great. We're going to sing We're All Friends Here. We are all friends. We are no strangers, but you walk inside our door. We welcome you together in our we are all friends. There are no strangers as we walk inside our door. We welcome you together in our hearts waiting our door.
All right, you unitics. I always hate to break up all this wonderful hugging and joy, but we do need move things along a little bit here. This is the time in our service where we appreciate and affirm your financial contributions to this wonderful place called Unity Spiritual Center. And by the way, my name is Jim Sledge, and I am the treasurer on your board of trustees. And my word for you today is gratitude, because gratitude precedes prosperity. So let's take that into our consciousness as we say our prosperity blessings together. I know that my giving blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give and receive. I give thanks for the abundance that is mine to share. And so it is.
So we've been having a great time in choir talking about how four chord songs are such great hits. How many thousands and thousands of songs. And so Brian and I got together yesterday and we decided we'd show you something kind of fun. We decided not to do a regular song, but rather an improvisation. We were just going to take four chords and turn it into our own tune for you here this one.
1, 6, 4, 5.
That's correct. 1, 6, 4, 5. Or G, E minor, C, and D.
Hello. All right.
Thank you, Pat.
Yes, absolutely. All right, moving on. So, we give thanks for these gifts and for those who have given them, as we send them forth to bless our world. And so it is. And while we're in the spirit of giving thanks and for what we are receiving here at Unity, we want to take time to thank all those who have been in service to us. And today, it's the appreciation for those who have ever donned a yellow scarf for the welcoming team. So all of those who have worn a yellow scarf or are wearing them, please stand up to receive gratitude. Thank you all for being part of this process of generating, creating, moving forward with the welcoming team and connections that it's sparking. So these are good things. Today our chaplains are, please come on up.
Oh.
All right, so we have Tim and, please forgive me, I forgot. Kathy. Tim and Kathy are our chaplains today. Thank you. They've been holding our entire service in prayer today. If you have anything that is heavy on your heart, or is there something that you choose to celebrate, you can pray with one of our chaplains and they will hold it in prayer with you. They will be at the front of the sanctuary directly after service. Thank you both for being of service to us today. Thank you. Oh, I heard kids. You can fill out a prayer request in the form found in the seat pocket in front of you and put it in one of the prayer boxes at the front of the sanctuary. There's one, or you can find one out in the foyer. Our prayer team will pray with you for 7 days, and the prayers will be sent off to Silent Unity to be prayed over for 30 days. If you know somebody who's in the hospital and has requested a visit from one of our chaplains, please fill out one of the visitation requests and get those in a prayer box as well. And, like we heard, the kids are here, so let's welcome them in with song. We are singing all the stories of life. 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 We are singing, oh, we are singing all the stories of life. We are singing, oh, we are singing all the stories of life. 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 We are singing, oh, we are singing all the stories of life. We are singing, oh, we are singing all the stories of life. We are singing all the stories of life. So, are you feeling the love and the light, everybody? Yes. Oh, that's terrific. We are very grateful for all of our youngsters here at Unity Spiritual Center. And let us take a moment to bless our children, the youth, and those who are in service to our youth ministry. So here we go. Be the love you are, sing the song you hear, and share your joy of life with people far and near. And for ourselves, be the love we are, sing the song we hear, share our joy of life with people far and near. All right, kids, it's time to go find your people. And people, find your kiddos. turns out our teens are out on a retreat, and so let's just send them some good blessings and wish them a safe return. Hopefully they return with lots of smiles and good news stories. And so it's time for our closing prayer. Please stand as you are able and join us. All right. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And that's the truth.
Make your stories conscious. Find out what your stories are trying to get your attention. Find out what your stories are trying to tell you.